Everybody, thanks for joining us for this podcast episode. I have Magda Juliana with us from Elemental Truth. Welcome, welcome, my friend. It's good to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. I'm really honored.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Good to have you here. Just before we get into our talk today on looking at, taking our wounds to making our wisdom or scars to strengths or the things we were told were weaknesses when actually they can be strengths of ours and help us differentiate and stand out. Give us a little glimpse of who you are, what you do, just to give some context to our talk, please, Magda.
Sure, of course. As you've just introduced me, my name is Magda Juliana. I'm an empowerment mentor and executive coach at Elemental Truth. And I basically work with people, individuals and groups as well, that are looking to rev up their empowerment and up level their resilience.
Love it.
It's something that we need when we're trying to reinvent ourselves and we're trying to create our lives on purpose.
Love it. Love it. Very cool. Very cool. And you do a lot of coaching, empowering, speaking as well. You're a speaker like myself as well, which is amazing. So I was really excited to have you on the show today to talk about resilience, talk about really looking and questioning it. And as I tell people, question everything. You don't have to refute everything. However, question everything, especially if it's things you've learned, things you've been told, been taught, because a lot of our thoughts and beliefs aren't our own. They've been put there by people, parents, grandparents, news, media, culture, teachers. What else am I missing? Other peers, right, have been put there, and they're not necessarily ours. And oftentimes, we've been told that our traits, our weaknesses. I was sharing with Magda Juliana before we got on recording today that being diagnosed with ADHD years ago, people often thought, oh, ADHD, that's bad, or that's this, or that's that, or prevents you from this, prevents you from that. Yes, we can get focused, defocused a little quicker and easier than people, or yes, we can get distracted, squirrel. But we can, however, we can also hyper focus and positively obsess about something we're passionate about, and then we want to create, and we just go there and let nothing stop us. So again, something that years ago I was told was a weakness, and I never once believed it because I knew I could hyper focus on things that I loved. Yes, things are more challenging for that I don't like, which is a little harder in school when you're forced to learn certain things. Yet in my life, I don't do the things I'm not good at. I either hire people or don't do it at all, or it's not related to my business. And what I do is what I love and what I'm great at. So I wanted just to give a little context and pretext to what we were talking about today. A lot of has been told that's bad or that's a weakness. And whether it's men or women, I know you speak to a lot of women too, but even men, women audiences, tell us a little more too, because I mean, especially women, but anyone, but women especially, been told this is a weakness, that's a weakness. It's not going to help you in corporate. You got to do this. You got to be like this and that. Talk to us a little bit about that, because that's super interesting.
It is, it is. And you know what? Before I really get going, because I can talk till the cows
Beautiful.
come home.
You're not like me at all, are you?
Not at all. I also have ADHD,
Beautiful.
and I was just diagnosed just recently.
Ah,
So just later in life, and it was really a struggle. So I can really relate with that, because you're thinking that I should be processing, and I'm still going to university, I'm doing all these things, but it was a struggle. And yet, I was being told it's just you're not concentrating enough, you're not focusing enough, you're not disciplined enough, you're not whatever. And meanwhile, you're just like, there's something very wrong with me.
mm,
And here's what really kind of came at me, really, which was like my revelation as I've been going. And the reason why I'm so passionate about this, because I've been going for decades over this.
nice.
And it's that we all have the freedom to choose how we decide to interpret the world.
This is
So
true.
these things that you're talking about, like, yeah, like the way my mom thought about money. And, I remember her many times saying, just get a really good job, retire, get your pension. And you should be
The
like very
typical.
thankful that's your process. Right. And I just couldn't, right.
No.
Especially with my neurodivergent way of living and being, I couldn't find joy in being stuck I needed adventure and risks
I hear
and
you. Especially for
crazy
20, 30
stuff.
years. How can you do something you don't love for 20, 30 years?
No,
Or
no.
maybe even if you do love it, and you maybe need a switch or a change for 20,
Yeah,
30
I need
years and then do the
environment
pension.
change. Yeah, all these different things. And so I what I thought was my weakness, which is I need always change, I need variety, is actually a super strength of mine. I call it, when I work with my clients, it's like, what are your superpowers? And let's go deep into your essence and find them out and actually wear them as a badge of honor. Like,
Right on.
yeah, I adapt like this. I'm able to speak with people like this. I'm able to get really deep and inside like this, right?
Love it.
So, all of these different things, we have the choice and the freedom to decide how am I actually going to interpret this, regardless of what I had been told that this is. I have the choice. And when we really begin to step into that acknowledgement that I am actually free to choose how I want to
We are.
decide this, man, it's like the whole world opens up. And all of a sudden, you have this confidence that kind of like it washes over you, and all the stress tends to kind of melt away. And all of a sudden, you're allowed, because you give yourself permission
Yeah.
to actually step into your authenticity and try things out. And we live in a great era right now, I would say.
I agree. I agree.
The perfect era, because now like the world just opened up. It's all global, right? There's really no limits except the ones that you give yourself, right? Because
Exactly.
even the as women, especially, we have lots of limitations as to what a good mother is,
Fair.
what a
Fair.
successful career woman is,
Yeah.
how to balance all those, juggle all those balls and everything like that.
And
Well,
how to be a feminine woman to your
oh,
partner too, or
right,
and how to be a woman, right? Or whatever people choose to identify as. But
yeah,
yeah, it's like, how do I juggle the business, the mom, the lover, the
yeah,
partner? It's
yeah.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, and in the corporate world, which I lived in for quite a couple of decades there,
Mhm.
um, we are kind of forced a lot of times to be very masculine
Mhm.
in order to be able to climb that corporate ladder. And
Mhm.
as managers, and when we have like people that we're in charge of, if we show a little bit of humanity, sometimes we're seen as, oh, you're being weak, you're too soft, you're too sensitive, you got to grow a thicker skin. Can't begin to tell you how many times that was told to me.
I
Yet
hear you.
our bottom
Trust me.
lines were going up. Yet, our culture was improving every single time. But the minute that you showed a little bit of compassion is really what it was. The minute that sat down and thought, oh, why were you late today? Are you having, how are things at
Yeah,
home? And you
okay.
just ask those questions of,
Mm.
why are you, why, that's not your job. That's just not. And it happened for me. It's kind of like gaslighting. Like,
Mhm.
I started to really doubt myself. I'm like, am I maybe not? I'm not set out for this. But yet again, the
Sure.
business part of it was going really well. Of course, my teams were happy. They felt invested. They wanted to do a good job for the team. When you have that type of culture and you're actually working as a team, the numbers and everything else will reflect, right?
Yeah.
But because we're stepping outside of the old paradigm of, and please excuse me, I don't mean to be prejudiced in any way, but this
No,
is
man.
kind of how I see it. It's like
Be real. Yeah.
the old white man in the big, ivory
Ivory
tower
tower, corner office. Yeah.
telling you this is the way business works.
Yeah.
That's old school. That just doesn't
Correct.
exist anymore.
It
And
it
more
doesn't work
people,
anymore. You're
and
right.
especially in industries that are very cutting edge, they're starting to have to open up
Yeah.
their minds
Yes.
and allow people to really begin to lead from their authenticity and what I call
Yeah.
heart-centered leadership. Because when you allow leaders to lead from their essence, that's when you're going to get the best out of everybody.
Everyone.
Because
It
a
was
good
exactly.
leader will trickle it down to the rest of their team. So
Well, to your point, I mean, it increases the responsiveness of people, of teams. It increases the creativity, increases, like you said, the motivation, inspiration, because people aren't treated like a number or thought of as a number. Shut up, don't show emotion. When I do a lot of my interviews for my next book, World Class Influence, it's interesting talking, women and men, but the men, it's interesting. The men say we need more humanity, more compassion back in the workplace, and these are exec CEOs, leaders, captains of industry, and they're even saying it. They get it, and it's like, yeah, we need more humanity, we need more compassion back, and I think it's a good learning step. Versus, you're right, the old white man in the ivory
I know,
tower.
I know.
It's
Yeah,
there's some truth to that. It's I think men have. I mean, you've probably seen these videos, whether it's, it used to be men. Oh, we don't need women. Now unfortunately it's come to women. Oh, we don't need men. They suck. And I think it's all bullshit, because we need each other. Men need women. Women need men. We each bring amazing things to the table, like the creativity, the emotion. That I mean, we I think you're not going to have an ideal leadership environment without both, or even an ideal family, parental, unit without both, both roles. It's very important. Any thoughts on that?
yeah, absolutely. The I understand that, as women, and I was once this woman as well, is that we feel like we need to turn that up a bit because we have been so suppressed for millennia. Let's
I
talk
get it.
about
Yeah, you're absolutely
this
right.
is like, right, we have like an ancestral lineage of being
Yep,
repressed
repressed and
and prosecuted and everything else, right? And so as women, especially in the last couple of, this last century, we really had to fight and almost in a very masculine way protect our femininity, right?
yeah, yeah.
I am aware. And so now you get a lot of like the boss ladies and and it's all still trying to like, okay, I've established a little bit of my empowerment. Now, how am I going to anchor this, right?
Yeah,
So that
yeah.
it doesn't get taken away again from us. And I think a lot of us still suffer from a little bit of PTSD in that regard
I
because
wouldn't doubt it. Yeah,
we
yeah.
do. But what you say is absolutely true. And what I work with a lot of groups in terms of that harmonization is that we're human beings, period.
Yeah.
Right. So whether you're man or woman, we all have feminine and masculine energy.
Agreed.
What that really means are like the way that we characterize and express those energies inside of us, right? So the masculine technically usually is like the process, the ABCs, the one, two, three is like
Yeah, the
there's
action
a
to go
process
for
and we
it.
gotta,
Yeah,
it's a linear thing and time is linear and this is how we follow through. That's very important.
yep.
There are certain things that we cannot do if we don't do, like
We don't
step
get that.
like that.
Yeah,
This is the way it goes, right?
the
Especially in
buses
this,
will be running on the wrong schedule.
exactly, like well, there's absolutely a place, and it's beautiful when we have that organization, and then when it harmonizes with the more feminine
Yep.
characteristics
Creative,
that, which is the spontaneity, creativity, allowing flow. Let's adapt. Let's be more flexible. It doesn't have to be concrete. Encouraging, celebrating. All of these softer type.
yeah.
I don't like to call them softer.
Yeah, I agree.
Soft
I agree.
master skills because it makes it again weak. It's
Yeah,
not weak.
yeah.
There's a superpower in them as well. And when you now have the
Interpersonal.
yeah, and when you now have the wisdom enough, right, to be able to take both and celebrate both and mix them together and harmonize them, whether it's in yourself, in your teams, in each other, that's when really we get the highest potential of each human being.
Agreed.
Right? Because it's not like this part, it's just like what we were talking about, like your strengths are not your weaknesses and your weaknesses are not your strengths. It's all about how I decide and choose to perceive and interpret my collection of elements that I'm bringing to the table.
I agree completely. Like, yeah, and you and I talking before the show about, some people are too direct and being told, oh, that's bad, you're too direct, which I think is BS. It's how you frame it. I mean, if you're a jerk, whether you're direct or beating around the bush, you're still a jerk. If you're a nice person, whether you're direct or beating around the bush, you're still a nice person. And often beating around the bush, especially in the business world, doesn't get you where you want. So sometimes we need to be more direct. And to your point, sometimes more creative, more compassionate, more empathetic, and which is why this set of skills is great for men and women. But it's just really interesting though to see there's nothing wrong with being direct. It's how you frame it, and there's nothing wrong with being raw and real and authentic versus, oh yeah, no, you're doing well, good job, versus someone's failing or someone's doing a miserable job. Help them, empower them, correct them, versus, oh, we can't say anything bad about Junior, we can't say anything bad about the team. Doing it in an empowering way, being direct. Hey, look, we're not getting the results you want. Or, hey, I see you struggling at this and I'd like to help. What do you need? What's coming up for you? And being versus, well, some days it's better to, do this and have vacations and breaks. And, some people do better than others. And it's just it's like, what, it's lost.
Yeah.
The point is lost. And I think we need, again, that duality, like you said, the I don't like the hard, not the hard and soft, but the masculine, feminine, the creative versus the structure, holistic. Yeah,
it's a holistic perspective and understanding and recognition, really, and celebrate, because top of everything else, every day should be a celebration.
Yeah,
even when we screw up, especially when we screw up.
Hell yeah.
Because when we have obstacles, and we were talking about this earlier too, when we have obstacles, how can you make it in your mindset? So instead of going into freak out mode, you go into, haha, here's something good. You know what I mean? Like almost like that evil villain.
Exactly.
Like, something's about to like
about Dr. Evil type thing. Yeah.
Happen. Right. Yeah. Because in the uncomfortable zones that we find ourselves, that's when we tap into our innovation, figuring out where my support is, What are my resources? And
Mm-hmm.
maybe you've been learning things along the way, but you've never gotten a chance to actually use them because it's never come about, right?
Sure.
This is where then we begin to show evidence. You know what? I'm pretty strong
Pretty freaking
actually.
amazing.
Yeah, exactly right. Like afterwards, when you're on the other side of the river, you're like, oh, I can't believe I just swam that whole thing, you know? And we are stronger than we think.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that I always like to say is that we are much more than what we think and what we feel. A lot of times we get really stuck in those shells of, oh,
True.
I'm feeling and I'm shy and I can't do this and whatever. And we get stuck in these kind of like pattern behaviors and thoughts and looping into all this. And then that holds us back,
Yep.
where we think that, well, no, I've done really well so far with that. So that must mean this is the way to do it always, forever and ever. And no. So it maybe helped you along the way till this far. But where now are you starting to get poked and prodded like, maybe it's time to take a step further
forward? Yeah, true.
That's where we have growth and really evolution intentionally, as opposed to just kind of sitting there and just letting life hit you in the face.
Life, exactly, things.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I think life shows us clues. The universe, life, God, whatever you believe in, shows us clues. And for me, it was throwing little pebbles, and then bigger stones, and then rocks, and then boulders, and then stuff happens, and things blow up in our lives, and people ask, why is this happening to me? And they're asking the wrong question. That'll keep them stuck. It's like, what do I need to do, or who do I need to become to overcome this, to change, to grow? Who do I need to ask? What resources do I need? So it's more of like a who, what, maybe even a bit of how. How do I move forward? How do I empower myself? Who do I need to help lead me through this and mentor me through this? I think it's a great question to ask versus well, this is the way I'm doing it. As Einstein says, then that's the results you're going to get. Otherwise, that's insanity. If you think you're going to do the same thing and not invest, and I get it, it's scary, guys. It can be very scary sometimes, but not invest in yourself, time, money, energy, and grow and go for it. Take risks. I was reading a study the other day. The biggest, most successful people in the world say that the two traits they commonly share is decisiveness and risk. So decisiveness, I'm going to do it, I decide, and then taking risk, taking action, versus the non-decisive, humming and hawing, waffling, and then missing umpteen opportunities because you've waffled or waited too long and said, let's do it. Or nothing ever happens. Or again, if you have that anti-risk mentality, that taking always a small risk or zero risk, well, no risk, no reward, and you're playing it safe, you fail I think you fail by default because you haven't got what you want. You never did it, and you're gonna look back at the end of life saying, "Wow, I really wish I did that." And to me, that the cost of that is insurmountable. Versus, well, I did it, and I did that whatever the thing I wanted, and lost some time or money or energy, but you haven't lost it all. You've learned anyways. You've learned. I'd much rather spend extra time or money, energy, and then look back at life and say, I really wish I had done that or tried that or taken action. So decisiveness and risk taking.
Yeah,
Well.
there's it's called reversing hindsight 2020. So like we know that from many studies now that when the elderly are being interviewed, right, like, or they're in palliative care or anything like that, and they're in a place in their lives where they really have the time and the space to be really reflective with what it is that they've done. And the number one thing always is, I wish I would have, even if I would have broken a leg, I don't care. I wish I would have, right? And the regret of not having done. And so when I work with my mentorship clients and my teams, before, to be honest with you, before we go into decision and action, you need awareness. You can't just like a chicken with your head cut off, just start crossing roads, and because it's very possible you'll get run over.
Yeah, fair.
But at first, we give ourselves kind of the space. And this is something that I know in the corporate world we tackle a bit with, because like, who has time, really? Like, I've got a million things I've got to do. And it's got to be like, what's the most short-term effective? I got to make it happen right now, right? But what I like to say is, like, if you don't take the step back, even if it's one day a month, you just take a step back and recalibrate. You need to learn how to practice discernment. That's a word that a lot of people don't use a lot of. They just think, well, I just, my gut, or I use my intuition. Yeah, but those are too fluffy. What does that mean?
And how do you hone that? How do you develop it? How do you figure out, okay, that was right or wrong, or is that my fear or my intuition talking? So to your point, exactly.
Yeah, because if you're not noticing what you're not noticing, how can you decide and then also understand the why, the how, why did that trigger me? How did you can't do any of that stuff
Mm-hmm.
if you first are not working on that master skill of awareness. You need to gather information to be able to learn yourself.
Yep.
And I teach this a lot to a lot of leaders, because until they start to do the work themselves, how can they possibly lead by example if you're still stuck with lots of prejudices and distorted beliefs about what success is, what being a team member is like, what being a good leader is like, what being a good woman is like, what being, a good non-toxic man, like
Well,
all these
exactly,
different
exactly.
things
Or
that,
should and shouldn't. And I mean, this what do we started on that tangent, but exactly being a good non-toxic man. I mean, I have some views on that too. And yes, avoid being an ass. And it's again the decisiveness, the being raw and real. And I think there's a lot of feminine and male traits that are great, into our point with our call, that are sometimes poo-pooed, so to speak, as bad or as toxic this or talk all those nonsense. And I think it depends, and it's about balance too. I think when anything is out of balance, the amount of oxygen in the environment, too much oxygen is toxic. A lot of people don't know that. Too much oxygen. That's why when we're scuba diving, if you use extra oxygen, we got to be careful because it can be toxic. It's all about balance. Everything's about balance, right? Oxygen can be toxic. It can kill you. We need it to live, but it can also kill you. So go figure.
yeah, absolutely. I think that's where the discernment kicks in, right?
Mm,
But if
yes,
like
yes.
in school, we're never taught that. In our families, we're never taught that usually, because they weren't taught either, right? And so I think, again, I think we're living in such a beautiful era right now, where if we want to learn it,
It's easy. We can.
it's at our fingertips. There's so much information and so much help right now, especially in the last 10 years. As a collective, I think we're all coming to, it's like we're all up leveling and kind of becoming even more aware of, like, there's got to be more to this life and my control over my environment and how I'm perceiving everything. That it's starting people, like, it's more of a mainstream
Mm,
thought of just a few, like the top 5% of the people looking after it. And I think, those trailblazers from like 20, 30 years ago, man, thank God for them, because they have really paved a bit of the road. I mean, we still have a way to go, but they have really paved the road for us, who are the trailblazers, trying to teach people, like, come along, there's no boogeyman down here. Like, it's just come over here. This is, we've got more freedom in here, and you have more empowerment. And when you live with empowerment and purpose, you bounce out of bed, right?
yep.
Reason most people get stuck is because they have created a thought in their mind that my day is blah. Life is just a struggle. I got to get all the kids. Look, what do I have to
Mhm.
do today? I got to get the kids to work. And man, I'm going to go to work. And then, so of course, you're not going to bounce out of bed. Who the hell wants to? Right? Because you've already made a decision in your head that today is just going to be like every other day,
And
and
it's
life is
this and
blah.
that, and yeah, exactly, and
As
unenjoyable.
opposed to, right, so as opposed to, like, for example, when you were a kid and there was like a field trip or a family vacation, or for me it was like fishing trips, right? I was up at 4 in the morning, like nobody had
Yep.
to wake me up. I was like, boom, out of bed. I had showered, I had like my cane and all of my tackle. I'm ready to go. My parents were like, oh my God, it's like still too early. What is this kid doing?
4 a.m. That's
Right,
the
but
excitement though.
that
Getting up early to do something. I think that's a great sign that you're doing what you love. And we don't. I found, just being an entrepreneur, you're not going to love every day. You're not going to, or being even working for someone else. You're not going to love every day. Certain days are better than worse than others. But
I
it's
would I would I would argue a little bit there and say, yes, it's true. The sensations can feel that way.
mm,
Again, you have the choice, because if you reframe how you
agreed.
interpret
Yeah,
even the crappy stuff, if you know the reason for it and
true.
know that you're going to grow from it, or you know what, like with a lot of the women, they're moms and they're trying to balance the career and everything like that. They start to feel like, oh, gotta take the kids to school, and it becomes a hassle.
Hmm.
Wait a second, you get half an hour with your kids in that car. What's it going to be like? How about, I don't know, putting on some fun tunes on the
Tunes,
way to school
dancing in the
and
chair. Yeah.
singing together? You know what I mean? Like, it's all about how you choose to interpret it.
Mm.
And if it's a hassle, then it's going to be a hassle. And that's how you're going to experience it and feel it. Again, I know there's probably going to be, that's easier said than, I'm sure there's going to be some people out there like, is she on crack? I get it. I understand. Because I'm also a woman that has like a million things going on, and we have struggles that we're working for. But one thing that I have noticed through my struggles, which I'm very open with, and if anybody they want to see my website or like, I talk a lot about it, right? Like everything from infertility, dealing with an elderly mother with Alzheimer's, dealing with being raped, assault, 2 divorces before the age of 31. Like, I get it.
Wow.
Life can be a punch in the face several times. But at the end of the day, really, if I leave it to that mental thought that life just happens to me, and again,
Right.
I'm just standing in the storm and just waiting for the bricks to hit me, and I'm just trying to dodge bullets all the time, or life happens for me, and I can decide how I'm going to wake up in the morning and what today is going to look like, even if I still have to do my taxes and
Well, yeah,
whatever,
fair enough.
right? It's
But
my choice, and no one can take my choice away from me. And
it's
that's
like
empowering.
that. To your point, I mean to cut you off, but to your point, it's like, okay, how is this good? What is good about this? How is this making me better, even though it's crap in the moment or really crappy in the moment? I get it. And I've been there, done that too. It is like, how is this good? How am I better, stronger, faster? I'm super resilient, and I'm I could persevere through pretty much anything. Nothing will stop me until I get what I want. And it's a great trait to have, because in business, or life in business, there's a lot of things that'll stop us. And so, to your point, I think every day can be a great day. It may not be perfect every day or blissful or ideal. And you're saying, Magda, Juliana, you can still make it a great day. This is the happening, or this happened, or that happened, and I can still make it a great day, especially if you have to lead a team or teach a course or coach or lead your family. It can still be a great day, and you're showing them that, hey, stuff happens. Instead of playing victim and pointing the finger or why me, it's like, okay, this happens. How is this good? How can we have fun with this? There's, I don't know, the blender exploded and the smoothie everywhere. How can we have fun with this? And I don't know,
Are
clean
you
up
in my
together as a
kitchen this
game.
morning?
Luckily, I've never had that. I've taken the lid off too early
Everything.
and got, yeah, but never exploded on me. But that's too funny. How can people? And I completely agree with you. It's, take your scars, your strengths, make your wounds your wisdom, and you get what you focus on. So focus on what you want. Or as oh my goodness, his name is slipping my brain, but he says, oh my goodness, world famous speaker guru. He says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will also change. So you're going to
Joe
look
Dispenza.
and attract and see more things that are better, quote unquote. How can someone that's been told, because as Magda, Juliana, as we were talking about here, people have been told and taught stuff all their life. This is good, this is bad. You should or shouldn't, can't, mustn't, and it's all nonsense. Who says you should? Who says you shouldn't? Who are these people? Where are they? Who says you can or can't, or this is what a good boy is, or a good girl does or doesn't do, or a good Christian or Jew or whatever, whoever? How do we, how can we really look at what we've been told is our weaknesses, and how do we look at those and really reframe it in our minds as a strength? Because you teach people how to do that, and I'd love our viewers to hear about that.
Yeah. So the absolute first step, like I said, is really working on your personal awareness. Because if you don't know what you don't know,
Yes,
right?
true.
And a lot of times we'll start off with the most carnal type of indicators, which is, how do I feel? And we already have like this integrated audit system inside of us, and we'll know when something doesn't sit well with us and when something doesn't resonate well with us. Like, why do they say that I can't do this, and like whatever it might be, right? So regardless of what the beliefs and what your mind, because we are not our mind, by the way,
True.
we are not our thoughts, right? So
No, we are
when
the
that,
con. Correct. We are the con, which is a whole. That's a whole. Let's
oh my God,
do.
we can
Let's
go.
do another podcast, because you're right. That's a whole nother. It's increase your brain, upgrade your brain, our thoughts, and our thoughts, our feelings. Like I said, that's not us. We're the
Yeah,
consciousness that observes it all. So that's
yeah.
amazing podcast. Let's do that. Anyways, I cut you off.
That's a whole other, yeah, it's like a whole week, I think. But okay, so we're not our thoughts, right? So when that record is, going and looping around for us, there is a internal compass that kind of gets activated. And after, because we'll start to feel friction inside, and we'll feel friction also as moments are coming through. And a lot of times we bulldoze over those feelings and sensations
Fair.
in this for the sake of being efficient.
Fair.
Or I don't have time for this right now. Or because it feels so uncomfortable, and then I don't know what am I supposed to do with that. So I just kind of like whatever. And then that's when usually midlife crisis kind of hits. And actually now I've been noticing in the newer generations, it's happening earlier and earlier because again, like the collective is, we're all kind of like rising up together that it's like,
Yeah.
you can't get away with that kind of crap for very much longer. It's just like,
No,
it
it's
comes,
true. It's true.
it starts like bringing you in closer. And so what happens then is that you have, again, a choice. You decide to explode. That's what happened to me. I literally burnt out. You know, I, even with all of my psychotherapy background, and I was doing all the right things, I was meditating, like all the right things, I wasn't taking care of that awareness piece. And I, like you said, it was like a rock, a boulder, and for me, it was like an entire condominium fell on top of me. And it was like, look, I'm going to stop you in your tracks, and you're going to deal with this now already. And so that's the first part, right? And so for a lot of people, I know I'm going to say this, and then be like, meditation is really important. I know, but you know, meditation really has evolved as well.
I agree.
A lot, right? And so for me, meditation can literally sometimes be, you know, I'm going to take a walk to the mailbox. So what I always say is that it's not necessarily the action you take, it's the intention behind the action I take.
Yes, correct.
So I'll make a nice mug of tea, right? And I'm thinking, okay, it's just my tea for the morning. Or I can say, okay, I'm going to make this tea because I love myself and because I need 5 minutes to drink it. And while I drink it, I'm going to tap in and be like, how do I feel about what's happening today and what's about to happen?
True. Yep.
And that's how you begin to tap into it. But that takes practice and it takes consistency every day. So I teach my clients to literally grab, you know, the thing that's always attached to us, my cell phone, and I put in the little reminder, 1 minute. That's all I'm asking. 1 minute, 3 times a day. When is the first one? Right before you wake up, or not before you wake, but right when you wake up. So if you get up, yeah. So if you get up at 6 in the morning, then you put your alarm clock at 5:55. It's that simple. You don't have to get out of bed. You don't have to go light incense. You don't need to do anything. I just need you to stay laying down and be like, okay, I'm going to feel myself. How do the covers feel on top of my body? Am I sleepy? Yeah, my knee hurts a little bit. I wonder how I slept last night. Okay, am I feeling heavy? How's my stomach feeling? Am I hungry? That's it. Just tap into yourself. That's how easy it can begin to be. You don't have to be all etherical, like and all philosophical that early in the morning. No, it can just simply be, how am I feeling? And just tapping in. How does it feel to actually just feel my fingertips? Okay, great. I know a lot of people are like, what's that going to do?
Being present and checking in, connecting.
It will be huge.
Yeah.
And then maybe at one more time before you go to bed. Again, you go to bed at 10 o'clock at night, you're starting to lay down there. Okay, take 1 minute, put it on. So the little alarm goes off and be like, okay, for 1 minute, I'm just going to think, it was a busy day. How do I feel about everything that just happened, right? There's this beautiful Buddhist, is it Tibetan? Or I think it's a Tibetan practice. It's a beautiful one where you actually reverse your day. And you go, it's almost like you're rewinding. Cool. And you reverse your day and you kind of focus on, oh, I didn't like how that conversation went. How could I have done that maybe better? Or how could that have evolved better? Because sometimes it's not always about judging and criticizing what I did wrong. It's just, you know, what was the dynamic there and how could have maybe it been better for everybody involved? And then you go through it. And that's it. And what happens when we start getting into the consistency of this is that it starts to become our norm. And what you're going to start noticing is that you're going to start noticing more frequently. And what happens then is that you start being more present in your day more frequently. What happens then is that you start then in real time, when the trigger starts happening or when the whatever it is that normally makes you react as opposed to respond, when that starts to come up, you start realizing, I'm starting to feel the palpitations. I'm starting to feel that irritation pop in. And then you start to become self-aware. And when we become self-aware, like
It's
it's the
key.
highway. It's like it's the gateway
It's a
opens, and
high,
you're like,
exactly. It's a high level of consciousness versus, okay, why am I doing this? And why am I being, do I really want to be, is this who I want to be? The man or woman I want to be, being reactive or scared or worried or procrastinating or being mean or whatever it is. Exactly. What would you say, just to wrap up in the next minute or so? What would you say? Just culmination of our talk here, or any other tips? Culmination of really taking those things that we would taught were bad or weaknesses. What anything else you'd say of that, or leave our audience with for that?
um, there is so much value in giving yourself the gift to really give yourself the space and redefine for yourself what is your good,
Fair.
what is your empowerment, and the way that you want to show up in your day. Because when you do that, it has such a huge global impact. It ripples out. We sometimes think that it's what a waste of time sitting here for a minute just to think about how my toes feel.
Mm.
Everything matters. And when you actually go in and give it a chance to really begin to really know who you are and how you're actually responding to the world, and actually how you're on robot mode 99% of your day.
Yep, we'll talk
A
about that
whole
in
other
another
talk.
podcast
I
too.
know, it's like the whole other day. 99% of your thoughts are actually on autopilot. You have no control over your life. No wonder you feel like a slave. And it's just because we haven't taken control of what's happening up here and connected it with what's happening in here.
Right on.
And we haven't kind of gotten the steering wheel, right? And so I know a lot of the people probably listening to you, they've probably done a lot of inner work already. They're working on
Depends.
themselves, they're
Yeah.
working on their career goals, on their master skills and all this stuff like that. But until we really feel like we're sitting in the driver's seat, it's kind of like a lottery, just hoping
Well,
stuff just
helping waiting exactly, and not having the control. And it's that's why I love the tools I teach. I love NLP. And you're right, it's about A, awareness, and B, upgrading your brain. The principle, like, I got to upgrade the software. We can't be wildly successful with software that was programmed into us 20, 30, 40 or more 80 years ago. It's hard. It's hard and challenging because we're working against bad programming, where you're using a computer, a supercomputer, your brain, with programs like, Windows 95 or Windows 98, or Windows, maybe I'm dating myself, Windows 2000, if anyone knows what the hell Windows 95 is still. But it's like that, right? It's interesting. So I appreciate this. This is great. We can have many more talks, and we will. Um, how can people get a hold of you? How can people reach you? How do they get a hold of you?
oh my goodness, I'm everywhere. So on purpose.
Call your name and you appear.
Much. I share a lot of stuff almost daily on Instagram. That's absolutely one. So Instagram would be at elementaltruth.ca. I'm on TikTok as well. I'm on YouTube. I try to share a lot of, especially some guided meditations and some of those awareness prompt exercises for like a minute or two. So if that kind of resonates for you, please, it'll again be Elemental Truth. And also on LinkedIn and podcasts like yourself, right?
Beautiful.
So yeah, if you Google me, I'll come up, I promise.
Beautiful. I love it. I love it. Hey, thanks for letting me help him working with me to help others and make a difference here. And hey, I definitely love doing this. And so I appreciate it. We'll have you back on again. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, James.
My
Thank you. And
pleasure.
thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Magda, Juliana. Bye, guys. Thanks. Have a good day, everybody.